I was 11 years old when Pokémon Fever hit the US. I caught the fever and loved it. First with the television show, then the games, and finally with the trading cards. Little did I know the lasting impact that Pokémon Fever would have on how I watched TV, played video games, and collected cards. Because Pokémon changed everything.
Pika Pika!
Before Pokémon, my show of choice was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Every episode followed a formula that would have all the loose ends tied up before the credits rolled. Until it didn't. Some episodes ended with "to be continued," and I wasn't sure how I felt about this when I was a kid. I would be excited and upset. I would think about what would happen in the next episode all day, and the lack of closure would just gnaw at my brain. But then would all pay off when I could finally tune into the next episode and get the climax of the story and the closure that I was looking for. The Green with Evil 5-part story was a very stressful week for me when I was a kid, but it was so good. So when I first watched Pokémon, the episode ended with "to be continued," and it had the desired effect. I did everything that I could to watch the next episode because it took place right after the previous one, but that one also ended with "to be continued." I figured, this is going to be Green with Evil all over again. And there wasn't even a recap at the start of the next episode. This happened again and again at the end of every episode. It was driving me crazy. Eventually, I broke. I stopped caring about the serialization of the series. I was going to miss parts of the story, and that's why TV sucked and video games were better. This carried on through the next series that I would enjoy, Yu-Gi-Oh!, where if I missed an episode, I just assumed that the good guys won, and then I'd go on with my day. And I still have this attitude today. The only real bummer is when video games betrayed me and pulled this crap on me with the Kingdom Hearts series. I was trying to follow the series, but I couldn't chase down every platform that the games were being released on. So I stopped playing after Kingdom Hearts 2. Someday I'll catch up on the series, but I'm in no hurry. Speaking of video games, I started my Pokemon journey with Red version. After beating the game, I would start over, raising a new team. I played it and replayed it. During my playthroughs, I didn't like training up new Pokemon if I wanted to try them on my team. So eventually, I started planning out my team before starting a new game, including where I would catch them, all in an effort to reduce grinding. I wouldn't catch or train any Pokemon that I hadn't already planned ahead for. Towards the end of my time with Pokemon Red, the fun was in displaying my mastery of the game and executing my plan quickly. I had stopped role-playing in Pokemon and was instead executing a predetermined plan. This skill ended up being a big help for Gold and Silver, because I couldn't get my hands on a copy to play. I tried earning money, begging my parents, even offering to trade other stuff with my friends to play it. In the end, I had one friend that agreed to let me borrow his copy and save over his game so that I could play through it. Since the game had been out for a while, I already had some Pokemon that I wanted to try, so I kept with my strategy of only training my predetermined team. I was able to beat the game quickly and promptly return it. This was how I would play RPGs from then on, just figuring out the best build of each character and then using that to beat the game as fast as I could. Eventually, over time, I lost interest in RPGs altogether. It wasn't until recently, after revisiting some of my old favorites, that I realized that this was hurting the experience for me, and I've started to create original characters to roleplay as in my role-playing game, and having their personality flaws play a part in my adventure, and it's really revitalized the genre for me. Rewinding a bit to before Gold and Silver released, I was exposed to the card game in middle school when a friend gifted me a Nidorino card, and from there, I traded up until I had all of my favorite Pokemon as cards. For Christmas that year, I asked my parents for Pokemon cards, but my parents, being thrifty, ended up getting some Pokemon cards, but not the TCG cards. I didn't even know the rules to the trading card game. I just enjoyed having a collection of cards. Each card had a story, the story of how I got the card, the story of the Pokemon that I used in the game. Some cards were special because I couldn't get that Pokemon in the game. My favorite card was Alakazam. I often had a Kadabra on my team, but I never had an Alakazam because none of my friends had a link cable. This attitude toward collecting led me to how I collect games today, and now to this series that tells the stories behind the games in my collection. I really enjoyed Pokemon Red and Silver, but soon after, the Game Boy Advance came out, and I couldn't upgrade my system for a long time. I tried Pokemon Ruby when a cousin was in town. I could play his copy of the game for an afternoon, but it just didn't hook me like it did when I was younger. I stopped following the show, but I assumed that the good guys won. I hear Ash finally became a Pokemon master, and I did eventually learn the rules to the trading card game, but only after I was hooked into trading card games by Yu-Gi-Oh! I took a break from Pokemon for a time, but it would get its hooks back in me when I was back in college, and decided that I should purchase a 3DS and get back into handheld gaming. But I'll save that story for a future video. Let me know your Pokemon memories in the comments, and if you got the fever like I did. And thank you for watching.